You know, motorcyclists are super particular, but we're particular about different things. Some of us will not let our bikes go out of our garage unless it looks like it just came off of the showroom floor. Others, like myself, when I see the bugs splattered on the front, a little bit of pollen, a little bit of dirt, that just reminds me that, hey, I'm doing more riding than cleaning. Other people will buy just genuine parts. They'll spend a bunch of money outfitting their bike with stuff they know is going to work, while others, maybe more on a budget or whatever, will go through Amazon and buy a bunch of parts, try them out, and they may end up finding a hidden gem. But to be honest with you, there are 7 things that all motorcycle riders hate. Now, you may not hate every single thing on this list, but I can almost guarantee that every motorcycle rider will find 1 or 2 of these things on this list, if not more, that they do hate. But of course, I want to hear from y'all after the video. If you want to leave me your own list of things you hate as a motorcycle rider, let us know down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing and hit your notifications, and also consider joining the Shot Squad if you really like what I do and want to support me. You can do that here or on Patreon. Let's go and get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is slow speed. Everybody can ride a motorcycle at high speeds, right? It's really not that hard because the bike is doing most of the work for you. And that's just physics. So it's pretty enjoyable at high speeds, you know? There are some techniques that you need to know at higher speeds, you know, if you're taking a corner, emergency braking, all of that. So I don't want to take away from riders altogether, but the bike will stay upright. If it just has a straight trajectory and the bike's going 60 miles an hour and nothing to stop it, it will continue to go. Well, of course, it's going to slow down, but it will continue to stay upright. But slow speed is an entirely different animal. And we find this a lot at motorcycle rallies. We find it a lot in gas stations as well. Pretty much everywhere you go, anytime you start up your bike, you're going to be going slow speed at some point. Now, I know before I really started practicing this stuff, really started practicing this stuff, which is not too long ago, to be honest with you, I wanted to get my bike up over 10 miles an hour, as quickly as possible. There have been times where, I'm faced with a slow speed maneuver that I know I'm going to have to make, and I will take the long way around the gas station to get to a different pump. I've had my buddy who's actually pretty good at turning the bars at slow speed and doing U-turns and stuff like that ask me, why do you always park away from me? Well, he'll tend to make these, really sharp right or left-hand turns, and, me, before I started practicing, I'm like, dude, I'm not risking it. I'll just go around and I'll park somewhere a little bit more convenient. Because not only am I looking at where I'm parking, but I'm also looking at how can I get out of this place, and what's the one area where I don't have to use any slow speed maneuvers. Now, once I started training a little bit, this actually became a lot more enjoyable to me, where now I try to challenge myself, and I can almost, start judging more about where I can or can't make some kind of U-turn, or making a slow speed maneuver in and out of a parking spot or a parking lot, or not getting so nervous about getting in those slow speed positions. Just a little bit of practice has helped with my slow speed maneuvers and my confidence while doing that. So I do understand, it can be very nerve-wracking, and it's something else we're going to get into here in a minute, but I feel like slow speed is one of those things that the majority of motorcycle riders just don't even want to deal with. I spent, 4 hours or so with Robert at Be the Boss of Your Motorcycle, and that really helped kind of open my eyes to what I actually do very well, which is slow stops and actually those slow turns, keeping the bike upright, not leaning the motorcycle at all, using the throttle and the clutch, rear brake, all that kind of stuff. And then I realized where I really suck, which is in U-turns and actually turning the handlebars at slow speed. But no matter who you train with, or if you seek out that training, even if you start right here on YouTube and just kind of look up exercises and then take those to a parking lot on your own, it is super beneficial to you to do that, so that way you can, gain the confidence and kind of understand that you're going to drop the motorcycle when you start practicing this stuff. So you're either going to drop it while you're perfecting your skill, or you're eventually just going to drop it and not know why the hell you dropped it in the first place. I think I would rather take the first solution. So knowing, hey, drops are going to happen, but as I continue to grow in that and get better and more confident, that way I'll know, hey, I dropped the bike for this reason, and then I can just keep it moving from there and hopefully not have it hit my confidence as much if I didn't know what I did wrong. And that's going to lead me into my next thing that motorcycle riders hate, which are gravel roads. And it's not just gravel roads, right? But gravel roads do present a problem to motorcycle riders. Of course, it can depend on the motorcycle you're on, but when you're on a big bagger like what we ride, you know, gravel roads just seem a little bit sketch. And this is where the friction zone is really going to help you, and not at all using the front brake, but just a little bit of the rear brake. And then, of course, you don't want to be leaning on the loose gravel or rocks. So that's where some of these exercises actually come in handy. And I've ridden on gravel roads even before I started practicing. And, you know, I just kind of realized, hey, can't give too much power to this thing, you know, and we also don't want to use that front brake because it's just too much grab. It's too much force and will pull you down really quickly. And also I know that you don't want to lean on this stuff. So although it can be a little bit butt puckering for sure, and it's going to be a little more puckering if you're going up or downhill, it still is something at some point that you're going to have to deal with. That doesn't mean that you have to like it, but at the end of the day, if you kind of know how to approach it, then you'll be just fine. Actually, to be honest with you, I find myself having more issues with grass than I do gravel. But any kind of surface that leads to less than ideal conditions can be very unnerving. You know, wet roads, oil on the road, you know, gravel roads, icy roads, God forbid, definitely don't want to be in that situation. These are the kinds of things that motorcycle riders really hate. Now, here's one I don't understand at all, and if you hate this, I'll hear you out, but I really don't get why there are some motorcycle riders that hate safety features. I don't know if it's a pride thing. I don't know if, well, I do know to an extent that I've seen some people in comment sections of other videos that I've done say, hey, you know, those safety features are dangerous because now riders think that's a replacement for training. And on that front, I actually agree with you. It's definitely not a replacement for doing, you know, emergency stops, knowing when to, you know, brake inside of a corner, or even how to maneuver in a corner. You know, when you're leaning into a corner and then, you know, having a little bit of brake pressure on as you're dipping into a corner, which will help you kind of steer the motorcycle, and it's not going to lead to very abrupt kind of stops. All of these things are very important and skills that you can pick up and will help you a lot. But if somehow, some way, you end up screwing up in the corner, having cornering ABS or cornering traction control, cornering drag torque control, all of these things to help keep the back end from getting out from underneath you and keeping your apex and everything as best as you possibly can. I cannot see how that is at all a bad thing. You know, ABS, traction control, having cornering versions of those things too, which might be even more important. But ABS for sure, dude, is one of the, I think, a life-saving thing on a motorcycle. And it's really one of those things that I would push for to be mandatory on every new motorcycle coming out. It's not something I typically like to do, is have some kind of intervention and say, oh, you have to do this. But you have the option to go with or without that, for sure go with it. Now, of course, practicing threshold braking and all that kind of stuff is really important, but I think these safety features can be life-saving, and it's going to make it a much more enjoyable and build up your confidence knowing that, hey, if you screw up, your bike and the electronics that are on it are going to have your back. So, while you don't always want to depend on a mechanical advice, those things are there, and I think they are fantastic. And again, I don't think I'll ever change my mind and say that safety features are somehow a bad thing on a motorcycle. Now, everything up to this point hasn't really been a blood boiler, but here's one that is, and it involves other drivers. And that is cell phone usage. When you see it and you're on your motorcycle specifically, man, it can be rage-inducing. I'm not saying go and rage at every, driver that you see that's on their cell phone, because at that point you're going to be raging at like 80% of the population. But it is maddening knowing that, there are motorcycle riders that get hit because people just have no awareness of what's around them. That's why I really honestly believe that the best drivers on the road are also motorcycle riders, because it increases your awareness. You can't be focused on, riding your bike and texting or looking at Facebook or any number of things. You have to really be concentrated on the road, the conditions. What kind of road are you on? Is it gravel? Did it just rain? How long ago did it rain? Is there oil on the road? Is there animals going to jump out in front of me? All of these things you have to take account for. And then on the opposite side of that, you have people that are just out there driving, oh, Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And they're just driving along, freaking, not paying attention, not using their turn signals. Or they may use their turn signals, but they think those turn signals somehow give them automatic right-of-way, which are the people that enrage me almost more than people that tailgate me. But, that's another thing, right? When you get tailgated on a motorcycle, that's a totally different thing. I've flipped around a number of times and told people, hey, back off. You know what I mean? Like that's super rage inducing because of how irresponsible it is, knowing that, hey, I took the chance of getting on this motorcycle because it's worth it to me to do that. But I don't need you increasing the chances of me getting hurt or worse by riding my ass while I'm, just trying to go down the highway. There's a number of different things. You'll see people just kind of come right over into lanes and all that kind of stuff. So all this stuff, motorcycle riders, you will probably at some point get a reaction if that's how you drive. And I really hope that a lot of bad drivers see this video, because if you do and you end up getting some words from a motorcyclist, I'm not saying that motorcyclists should be breaking, mirrors and all that kind of stuff. I don't agree or subscribe to all that stuff now, but you may get some words from a motorcyclist if you are doing something that puts us in danger. The biggest thing is just pay attention and stay off your damn phones. Now here's one I'd love to know how many motorcycle riders hate, because I would say the percentage is super high. And I'll be honest with you, man, it really kind of makes me wish I had a motorcycle trailer. I know that's not something that a lot of motorcycle YouTubers are gonna say, right? Because it's kind of like a badge of honor to, do these long distance trips. And I think it's awesome too, right? But at the end of the day, one thing I absolutely cannot stand are straight roads and highways. Interstates, they just bore me, dude. I mean, I'm sitting there, the things I love about a motorcycle and riding a motorcycle specifically are seeing different places, seeing different roads, and, coming across different state lines. I love that stuff. But, riding down to Daytona, riding down to Savannah, it just, none of that stuff really interests me, You go across a couple state lines when you go down there, but man, it is some of the most boring riding I've ever been a part of. To me, I would rather trailer my bike, go west, first of all, and go up to the Smokies, or go even further out than that, right? Where I can then get out there, I'll be refreshed, I'll be riding a bunch, and put a bunch of miles at my destination, not getting to the destination. And I know some people will disagree with this adamantly, and I understand that. It just seems like as I do more and more trips, I just find myself hating these roads. Now, fortunately, and this is another option if you want to ride those roads, you can take a little bit of extra time. Sometimes it's more than a little bit, but you can take extra time and travel alternate roads. You can go back roads and still get to your destination a lot of the times. Sometimes you can't avoid those highways or interstates, but at the same time, there are ways that you can avoid those. And I've actually set my, my Google Map, or actually my Apple Maps, to, avoid highways now at all costs, because I just can't stand them. It bores me to death. I want to see things. I want to take some corners. I want to, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I really like. The interstate and highways, ugh, they just drive me nuts, dude. Now here's one thing that I find very interesting, and I think this is highly dependent upon where you live. So I will concede that for sure, but you will find motorcycle riders that absolutely hate the cold. You will find riders that hate the heat. Now I live down in the South and I have for a long time, and you would think, hey, after 37 years, you're probably used to the heat by now. And I just find that to be less true every year that I get older. I cannot stand the summers around here. It just, man, it's brutal, right? And it's like that in a lot of the country. And so if you were to ask me, hey, would you rather take a little bit colder weather or would you rather take the heat? I almost always, my answer is going to be, actually not almost, always my answer will be, I would rather take a little bit of cold. Now, of course, that's assuming that both situations are equal. No snow, no ice, nothing like that, of course. Which is why it is pretty awesome down here in the South for the most part, depending upon where you live. Because even in winters, you're not going to get a ton of ice or snow. It's not going to, keep us from riding, 3 or 4 months out of the year. So that is a good thing. But at the end of the day, if I got to put a couple of layers on, I would much rather do that than try to battle the heat. I'm going to try a couple of things this summer because, again, I just find myself being less tolerant each and every year. I got a couple of ideas of things that I've tried. I've tried some things in the past, and pretty much nothing has worked to help combat the heat. Hopefully this year I can come up with a solid solution and, of course, report back to y'all on riding and staying a little bit cooler when it's really hot outside. And the last thing that all motorcycle riders hate is dropping their motorcycles, especially in front of other people. Again, rallies, gas stations, but I think rallies probably hurt your feelings even more. And really, anytime I've seen somebody drop a bike, or even if I've dropped a bike, people have always come over and they'll help you out. And, I've never looked at somebody and been like, oh my God, that guy dropped his bike, what a loser. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think like that. And I know that most people don't think like that. They just want to help, kind of feel bad for the guy, or girl or whoever's riding, and they just want to help them get it back up so they can do their thing. But it still is like ingrained in the back of your head. Don't drop your bike. Don't drop your bike. You're in a rally, you're backing up somewhere, and you pull in that clutch, dude, especially when you have the handlebars turned at slow speeds, dude. Yeah, good luck. You hit the front brake, even worse, and that bike is going down. And that's where a lot of this slow speed training is really going to come in handy. I'm actually kind of upset to an extent because even I'm having back surgery in less than a month. And so I know for 6 weeks, I'm not going to be able to practice this stuff, and you're going to lose that stuff. So, anytime you're practicing, if you think, oh, well, I could do a course maybe once every 6 months and I'll be good. That's not the case either. So that is something I should have mentioned, but I need to mention that now at least, is that if you're going to practice, make sure you be consistent with it. I don't know what people actually say, but I would think maybe 30 minutes to an hour a week at least, just to kind of keep yourself fresh and work on the things that you need to work on, right? But at the end of the day, dropping your bike, it is super embarrassing. It happens to all of us at some point for sure, whether you're practicing slow speed or you're at a rally and you're just not really confident with those slow speed maneuvers. And like I said, by doing those slow speed maneuvers, dropping your bike in a parking lot, you learn that stuff, then you can take that wherever you go and be able to be more confident when you do that stuff out and about at rallies or in front of people. But slow speed maneuvers and all that also just gives you options, so you don't have to make a lap around the parking lot just to find an easy spot to pull in and out of. And again, ask me how I know this stuff, because I was one of those people up until very, very recently. So there you go, man. There are 7 things that all motorcycle riders hate. Now, of course, I'd love to hear from y'all. Which one of these things on my list do you actually hate? Or which ones do you disagree with adamantly? Maybe you want to leave me your own list. No matter how you feel about this, I want to hear from y'all down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing, turn your notifications on, and consider joining the Shot Squad and gain access to some pretty cool perks. See y'all in the next one, and as always, hold 'em down.